I'd like to welcome Andrew McDonald and Andrew Savage to today's panel, and it's really great to see you both. My name is Kara Hurst, and I'm the Vice President of Worldwide Sustainability at Amazon. We are each here today representing signatories of the Climate Pledge, and the Climate Pledge offers companies to join a community of leading businesses who are all committed to transformational action that can protect the global economy from the disruptive risks associated with climate change. As I'm sure both Andrew and Andrew will agree, the climate crisis is the issue of our lifetime. And we think at Amazon, we have a moral responsibility to address it. But we're also really at an encouraging inflection point. So companies in all sectors are starting to realize that fighting climate change is not only important for the environment, but also essential from a business perspective. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Climate Pledge, which just 2 years ago was co-founded with Amazon and Global Optimism. And we did this to encourage other companies to accelerate goals and plans and programs, really to address the urgency of climate change in this very decisive decade and ramping up to 2040. What's extremely exciting about our recent progress is we now have over 200 signatories who are committed to achieving net zero carbon by 2040 or sooner. So the Climate Pledge community is truly a cross-sector coalition of companies and organizations, partners who are coming together and solving complex challenges of climate change through this kind of collaboration and joint action. I'm incredibly proud of the progress that we've made in helping to build this momentum. Very thrilled to be joined here today by two of the leaders in our transportation sector. So across this growing collective, really, of signatories, decarbonization of transportation and logistics continues to surface as a key focus area for companies on their path towards net zero. We know transportation is one of the leading sectors driving up global carbon emissions. And we are also looking at alternative transportation solutions along with efficiency and optimization as essential ways to create a low carbon economy of the future. So with that, I want to welcome Andrew and dive in on today's discussion. So as we continue to welcome and onboard new signatories, we're finding companies are really excited about being part of this kind of larger community that we're building to fight climate change. And they see this as an opportunity to help share some of the best practices that help them move faster. So Andrew McDonald, I want to start with you and love to kick off the discussion by hearing a little bit more about why Uber made the decision to sign on to the pledge.
And really great to be here, excited to be here during New York Climate Week. For Uber, taking action on climate is not just the right thing to do, it's fundamental to our business. You don't need to look far to recognize the vital need for business and government leaders to take action. Just in the last month or so, we've seen the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report on the dire state of global climate. And you just look around the world, you look around the headlines that come out every single day about flooding and hurricanes and wildfires, which obviously have a huge impact, not just on human health and lives, most importantly, but of course, business and our business. And then you have COVID on top of that. As hard as the pandemic has been on everyone, and most alarmingly, underserved groups and emerging economies, we do see a slight silver lining in that this is an opportunity to rethink things. This is an opportunity to look at our infrastructure and mobility systems and think as we come back, can we make more room in cities for walking, for cycling, for outdoor activities, and ultimately make an impact on individual car ownership. And that's the hope. Now, if we don't act quickly, things will quickly revert to normal. Private car use, you can see it in various data sets. Private car use has rebounded back to pre-pandemic levels already. So we're going in the opposite direction we think we should go. In addition, lots and lots of people have changed their lifestyle, have changed where they live, have changed what they do day to day. And that creates opportunities. It also creates risks, right? People are working from home part-time or full-time. which means they're ordering things to their house, groceries, other things via delivery. This is, again, I think, opportunities and risks to address going forward as it relates to transportation's impact on our climate. The reality is, and you said this in your opening, transportation, both passenger and freight, is responsible for 1/4 of the global climate footprint, and it remains one of the few sectors with growing emissions. And so we have an opportunity to take bold action. We think you have to take bold action, and that's why Uber's excited to participate in the pledge. That's why Uber committed to becoming a zero-emission platform by fully electrifying passenger rides in Europe, the US, and Canada by 2030, and globally by 2040. That's why we signed on to the pledge last December to help create more sustainable cities. And in our view, members of the pledge are the vanguard of climate ambition. Net zero by 2040, 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement. It's a team sport. It's going to take collaboration across organizations and government to get there. But this is a great initiative, not only that companies can commit to, but it also calls for innovation, for support from the ecosystem, and that's why we signed on.
It's fantastic. I love the team sport analogy. It is. I think we're all on this path together, and as you pointed out, so many of the biggest challenges are in this sector. So, Andrew, I know you and I share a background in policy work. I think that's one of the most important levers we can also bring in here. But can you build on that and maybe speak a little bit of the importance of coming together as an industry on this issue, given the impact that collectively our transportation and logistics have in climate?
Yeah, sure, Kara. And we were talking earlier about our shared backgrounds in policy, and I think it's quite fitting to have this conversation around corporate action when we see, around the world, and in particular in the United States, a struggle to see the necessary policy action to address this climate change crisis that we face. So, I had a background where I was working in Congress. I worked on the Waxman-Markey climate bill, which many folks will remember was, the first major climate legislation that Congress was taking up. And it's really been the last, right? There has not been major climate action that we've needed. In fact, I was actually working later on on a home retrofit program called Homestar, where no sooner had we gotten home or back to Capitol Hill from the announcement with President Obama that he'd endorsed the bill, and we thought we had all the wind at our backs, but the Senate had squashed the bill before we got there. And so for me, Waxman-Markey, that Homestar experience really crystallized that we need corporate action, and we need corporate action to take bold action on this climate crisis. And because policymakers will have a hard time catching up to this crisis if they don't act quickly enough. And I think corporations have an onus to take the leadership. And that's what we're doing at Lime. That's what we've heard, obviously, just now from Andrew at Uber and certainly Amazon, that we need major corporations to step up and show the path forward, show that it is good for business, that it is good for people, it is good for customers to be addressing their climate impacts. And so for Lime, it was really a no-brainer. We were founded on this notion that we could make cities better and cleaner and reduce carbon through micromobility, through zero carbon transportation options. And so we're working day in, day out on how do we continue to expand our service, but also improve how we deliver that service on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think that's what we know it's going to take, is those kind of operational changes, but also big, bold commitments that you each detailed there. I think that's what sets the pledge apart from some of these other climate commitments. So to have real impact, we need to collectively work to build that zero carbon economy. The pledge now has more than 200 signatories. They're across 26 different industries, 21 countries. So I'm really inspired by that kind of diverse group of companies that are committed to reaching net zero carbon by 2040 or earlier. And many of these companies are longtime leaders in the climate space, while others are stepping up for the very first time. But I think all of these leaders and companies are really pushing themselves and their teams to do more on a faster timeline, demonstrating collective impact, and looking at what the climate pledge can do in terms of reducing global carbon emissions. So I want to go now, having just talked about the ways that this community is growing, I'd love to hear some of the specificity. That's really how we learn, right? To understand the specific actions that Uber and Lime are taking to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement 10 years early, which is a very accelerated time frame. So you both have unique roles in working towards the decarbonization of your own operations, but also enabling your customers to decarbonize their own carbon footprints. So maybe, Andrew, we start with you on what initiatives or solutions does Uber already have in place to support the commitments of the climate pledge?
Yeah, happy to speak to the details. The details are what matter here, right?
Yeah.
So we think it's important to lead, as I said, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because our business depends on it. And we have an ambition to be the largest mobility platform in the world. And so if we're going to decarbonize transportation, we're going to have to lead the way there. And so we're the only global ride-sharing company to, I think, be leaning into this the way it requires. That includes, we've committed $800 million in resources to help drivers transition to electric vehicles over the next 5 years. We've committed to transparency, and we think transparency really matters because we actually need the public to be able to hold companies accountable. And so we've committed to publish a transparency report on the carbon emissions impact from the trips we serve using real world data from every single ride. We are expanding our all hybrid and EV ride request option, Uber Green, globally. As you say, this allows customers to make green choices. And if customers make green choices in our marketplace, that helps the drivers who've made green choices. So we're excited about that initiative. We've also built multimodal transportation into our app. So the ability to get not just a car, but car-free options, integrations with public transit, integrations with great partners such as Lime to choose low emissions, lightweight vehicles. So these are things we are doing to give consumers choice. As I said, we are doubling down on transparency. Similar to our U.S. safety report, which has detailed our efforts and actual data on safety. We're publishing a climate assessment and performance report, which is, what we're hoping sets a new bar for corporate transparency on emissions from our product use. And this is really, as I say, about the public having a right to know as it relates to transportation. And this will drive accountability, not just for Uber, but we hope for the whole industry and other industries as well. So we're excited about that. One more specific theme I think worth unpacking is that Europe's at the forefront of a lot of our efforts. So if you want to look at things that Uber is going to be doing globally as it relates to climate, I think taking a look at what we're doing in Europe is a good place to start. We've committed to having 50% of our vehicles be electric by 2025 in 7 major European capitals, London, Paris, Lisbon, Brussels, Berlin, Madrid, and Amsterdam. So these are, big cities, important businesses for us that are sort of leading the way on electrification, both on Uber's platform and globally. We are, Uber Green debuted in Europe in 2016. We've now taken it to 100 plus cities globally. In London, we've done probably more as it relates to helping drivers fund the transition to electric than anywhere else in the world. And so we're going to continue to use Europe as a sort of test bed to lead the way. But as I said, this is a global commitment for Uber. And so we're excited. We view this as the initiatives I listed is very much just the beginning of this commitment and our efforts on the commitment.
Well, those are quite a lot of initiatives for just the beginning. So congratulations on taking all of those steps. And thank you for sharing that level of detail, because I think, that those kinds of commitments and initiatives, goals, and tactics, really, all of it coming from everything, what you're doing on behalf of customers to what you're doing to transform your own operations, your own fleet, your own commitments, is really inspiring. And I'm sure others listening here today will take a lot away from that. So Andrew, tell us about Lime and what kind of actions that Lime is taking to meet the pledge and to this urgency around climate action.
Sure. Yeah. So back in 2019, when we first introduced electric vehicles, we actually started out as a bike share company, but have quickly since introduced electric mobility to micromobility. we committed to 100% renewable energy for charging all those vehicles. That feels somewhat like a no-brainer today that the vehicles that folks would be driving around on would be powered by renewables, but at the time felt a bit bold. We were the first company to make that commitment. And since then, it's been a steady stream of doubling down on those types of commitments. So last fall, we made a commitment to powering all of our warehouses with 100% renewable energy as well. And so, essentially looking at, we're a pretty heavy operational business, right? We operate fleets in over 200 markets around the globe. And so we have these warehouses and that serve as facilities, both for repair and reuse, but also for charging. So in addition to 100% electric fleet that we offer to our customers, 100% renewable energy to back that up, as well as the facilities, we've more recently made a commitment to transforming all of our vehicles that manage those fleets to electric vehicles or pedal assist bikes, so zero emissions vehicles. So as we think about our operations, we think about continuously improving and decarbonizing that operation. That's a sort of a cornerstone for us. Now we also offer a hardware product, right? So we are constantly thinking about how can the hardware itself be lower carbon, and we have conducted since 2018 essentially a life cycle analysis on each product that we release. And so the life cycle analysis helps us look at what is a lifespan, what is the embedded carbon, what are ways that we can improve on that one to improve to the next one. And so what we're looking at is constantly making improvements there. And some things that we've found to be incredibly helpful is a more modular product, so that when it comes time to bring a vehicle, a scooter, an e-bike, a moped into our warehouse, how can we swap out parts and reuse those parts so that they last longer on the road? So that you're not dealing with needing to buy more vehicles, you're actually just reusing parts when necessary. And we're also looking at second life uses. So once a product does, or a part does leave Lime's orbit, how do we find a quality and good second life for that that part or that piece? And so one of the more interesting ones is with batteries, where we have found that some batteries are no longer usable for e-mobility, for moving a person around a city, but we can actually have partners like we did with GOMI in the United Kingdom, where they take the cells, they refabricate the batteries from the cells that are still working and create a consumer product in itself with those batteries. So they're making portable Bluetooth speakers, for example. So while we want to always prevent things from leaving Lime's orbit, certainly finding a good second use for our products is incredibly helpful as well. So, we really are looking sort of from beginning to end, from, charging the vehicles before consumers use them, to how we power our facilities, to how long the product lasts. And even once it is end of life for us, whose life is it? Who can use it after our Lime uses it is critical for our sort of footprint and our circularity as well.
Fantastic. I love that you bring the life cycle perspective in there, and also the circularity. I know we only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to go through hopefully questions, and we'll try and get through most of them quickly. But the transportation sector plays such an important role in helping the global economy to decarbonize. So the question I have for you now is, what kind of progress do you see from your company in meeting this in the next 5 or 10 years? So maybe one goal that you think is really, really important. And who else, as we look at this from an industry perspective, would you love to see join the climate pledge?
So I can start there.
Sure, jump in.
So look, one goal. I mentioned a bunch of initiatives we've got in flight. So really, in the near term for us, it's going to be about just executing. Right, we're about 1 year into our commitment here, and we've got dozens of initiatives deployed around the world. So I think one of the most important things we can do, and we are doing, is bringing dollars to bear to help literally millions of drivers on the Uber platform transition to EVs, and both by 2025, 2030, and then 2040 globally. And I think putting our money where our mouth is what we need to be doing. Part of that is going to be Uber-funded initiatives, but as I mentioned, part of this is getting consumers to help fund the transition because they care about green transport. So that's why Uber Green matters so much as far as a product, and I think there's more we can do to drive awareness there. But we're also trying to add additional earnings on these trips for drivers who do make the switch. Because at the end of the day, I think economic incentives are what's going to drive a lot of this transition. So in the US and Canada, for instance, if you're driving a battery electric vehicle, we've set it up so that you can earn $1 more per trip. If you've got a EV or hybrid, you're going to earn 50 cents more per trip on Uber Green trips you complete. And these types of programs, I think, really help make it worth the while for drivers to transition. You mentioned who else should participate. I don't want to name names as far as you join the pledge, but certainly the ecosystem helps us all get there. And so, we're growing our network of partnership with leading private sector companies, including GM, including Renault Nissan, including EVgo, BP, Total, and many other global automakers or electric infrastructure players, because I think it's going to take all of us working together to actually make such a stark transition happen. And so, I'd like to see all of those names and more participate here. And we'll continue to advocate for policy that we think makes sense for transportation. So we'll join organizations that, advocate to governments to make it easier to make the 100% electric vehicle transition, because I think without the infrastructure in place, it's going to be very, very hard. So as I mentioned, early days of the journey, a program at Uber is still relatively nascent, and we've got a long way to go. But we're proud to be out in front with companies like Amazon and Lime as we work with governments and partners to try to make the transition here.
Great. And Andrew, any quick closing comments from you around Lime?
Sure. Yeah, I think Andrew hit on it, that some of the key consumer partnerships I think are really important, and certainly the idea of being able to be on a platform like Uber where someone can choose to take a car, can take a bike, take a scooter, whatever makes the most sense for them at the moment. And increasingly decarbonizing all of that is really exciting and promising. For us, I think supply chain is key. So as a hardware business, as many businesses are, we really need to work on engaging our supply chain way back to manufacturing in terms of reducing the carbon footprint of our business, of our products. And so, we set at Lime a science-based target, something we'll be reporting on annually for the transparency as well as the accounting and just holding ourselves accountable. We're early in this journey, but supply chain engagement is going to be key. I see a future where we are all decarbonizing the nature of the hardware products that we're all using, whether it be a car, a scooter, a package, or what have you, that all will need to be lower and lower carbon over time and quickly.
Terrific. Great. Well, thank you both to Andrew McDonald and Andrew Savage for the conversation today, for your leadership, for bringing Uber and Lime into the pledge. Very excited to continue to work together and rise to the challenge that's in front of us in this very decisive decade. So I want to take the opportunity to invite anyone watching today to stay tuned as we now move into the conversation on the topic of energy and infrastructure. Thanks so much. Well, today I'd like to welcome Ellen Jakowski from HP and Jakob Vos from Orsted, Matthias Rebellius from Siemens, and Nicola Piel-Molter from VMware. Thank you so much for taking the time to join today's panel. We're now going to shift the conversation to how pledge signatories are already working to transform our infrastructure and energy system and helping signatories like Uber and Lime power their fleets. So first, I just want to start with you, Jakob. At Orsted, you've demonstrated a really impressive transition and a transformation from a fossil fuel company to a truly renewable energy powerhouse. So I'm pretty sure you have a lot of insights to share with other companies. Can you tell us a little bit about how the Climate Pledge community can help to disseminate those kinds of learnings like you may have and help others transition to clean energy?
Well, thank you very much, Kara. And yes, indeed, we have been through a very significant transformation in Orsted. Just a decade ago, we were one of the most fossil fuel intensive energy companies in Europe. And last year, we were named the most sustainable company in the world. And for 3 years in a row, the most sustainable energy company in the world. And we have a vision of a world that runs entirely on green energy. and that is really what we make all our decisions from. And we are well on track to meet our target of becoming fully carbon neutral in our scope 1 and 2 by 2025, and in our scope 3 by 2040. And that's why we are obviously very excited to be part of the climate pledge, and really working with a lot of all of the other sort of front runner companies in driving what is absolutely a necessary transformation of our global energy and transport systems. And the reason why we decided to set the target for 2040 is that we are so far ahead in our decarbonization journey already in our scope 1 and 2. So we said if we are so far ahead in scope 1 and 2, we need to be sort of really at the forefront of also driving action in scope 3. So we are very excited to be part of this group, and really also to share our learnings with the members of the community, and really to jointly discuss and explore what we can do to accelerate what is obviously a very urgent transformation that we're facing.
Yeah, I think that the urgency is incredibly important. Matthias, I want to bring you in here and talk about Siemens a little bit, which is a little bit different. So your company is enabling a transition to a clean energy future. How do you think that pledge signatories can help cities evolve this infrastructure transition to enable the urgency that we've been talking about around climate?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me here in it's a very important topic, close to my heart, and also, of course, to our company. And for me, not only for smart infrastructure, but for the whole of Siemens, driving the Industry 4.0 for efficiency, and also the low emission in industries, in transportation, as well as in infrastructure. And that is very important, because of we do this for our customers. Our customers already saved more than 150 million tons of CO2 last year, and so it's real. It's happening. It's as real as also the challenge that we are facing around us, not only in cities, but and talk transport and energy here, but the climate crisis is there. We see it happening, and obviously the impacts already around the globe. And therefore, it's so important to have real projects with real customers and driving this forward. If you want, I can share also the one or the other with, for example, in America, electric power. We make not only efficient. It's not about generation. Also, it's about making the grid more intelligent, and then helping also to increase the amount of resources available, and also to make the forecasting of energy and energy demand and supply better. So we create a total digital twin of the network and help them to become more effective and efficient. And that is why is this important? Because this is enabling a renewable energy world, and getting to 80% renewable rather than 20% what we have today. And Jakob, you did a great job, obviously, to get ahead of the curve. There's a lot to do around the globe in this direction. And so we're doing this for grid customers, for building customers, which is still the single largest source of emissions and energy consumption. And for industrial customers, like, for example, Mercedes-Benz, where we do make a sustainable factory and in the middle in Berlin as a role model also for global. We commit to our ESG targets with our newly communicated degree framework. Without going into detail here, it's about not only supporting our customers, but also doing it on our own. And we will talk about this later, I'm sure.
Terrific. Well, I really, I'm glad you brought in customers there, but also renewable energy. And I want to pivot for Alan and Nicola. Like Amazon, both of your companies have made the commitment to transition to 100% renewable energy to power your global operations. I'd love to hear a little bit about how the pledge helps you meet those goals, or what lessons learned would you be able to share with some of the signatories that might be listening today, and others that are interested in pursuing these kinds of 100% renewable energy goals?
Well,
Ellen,
thanks,
maybe we can
Kara.
start with
So
you.
excited. Sure. So excited to be here today with you for this important discussion. So HP joined RE100 back in 2016, and we've been making solid progress towards our goal of achieving 100% renewable electricity in our global operations by 2035. But as we all know, the urgency of the climate crisis, which we're seeing through severe weather events, droughts, floodings, hurricanes, where I live here in Northern California, wildfires, and so many other events, all of these things, of course, are bringing pressure on us, as well as the science, which is clear. It shows us that we all have to be so much more aggressive in our actions. And 2020, this is our defining decade right now. So in April 2021, HP announced some of the boldest and most comprehensive climate action goals in our industry, focused across carbon emissions, circularity, and forests. And we accelerated our renewable electricity goal by 10 years, aiming to be 100% renewable electricity by 2025. And through 2020, we've achieved 100% in the United States, and we're at 51% globally. But one of the challenges that we and others face in this area is that some parts of the world, including places where HP has operations, the policies and the mechanisms are not in place to pursue renewable electricity as a viable option. For example, in Singapore, where we have our Asia Pacific headquarters, the demand outpaces supply. So achieving our goal requires that we work to increase capacity and develop opportunities for renewables in those key countries that currently have little or no feasible options. So, joining the Climate Pledge and other coalitions like RE100 and REBA, that enables us to work alongside other world-leading businesses like yours, of course, and others represented here today to accelerate the business demand for renewable power. And that sends a crucial market signal that will give the utility companies, hopefully, the confidence to supply it. I'll also add that achieving 100% renewable electricity in our own operations, it's important. We certainly have to take care of our own house. But if you look at HP's carbon footprint, our operations are a very small part of our overall carbon footprint. So the real opportunity for us is to decarbonize both upstream across our supply chain, encouraging our suppliers and requesting them to shift as well towards renewable electricity, as well as through our customers' use of our products. We're not an energy company, but our products certainly rely on electricity to operate. So our business, and in fact, the full fourth industrial revolution, has to be built around a green grid. So joining the Climate Pledge, it sends a clear demand signal, helps us drive the policies, increase offerings, and of course, get other players to set their own targets.
Right. Nicola, let's bring you in. I'd love to hear more about VMware.
Yeah, thanks, Kara. Very excited to be part of this important panel and my esteemed colleagues. And I echo everything that Ellen has said. VMware, we're part of the science-based targets, trying to achieve a net zero carbon emissions by 2030. We are also part of RE100. But I would say, as far as your question goes for the audience, it is a journey, and depending on where you are in that journey, if you have leadership in the company that recognizes the urgency to act on climate change and the responsibility that our companies have to contribute towards that goal, that's wonderful. But you may not have that type of leadership. And what I believe the organizations and commitments like the Pledge and RE100 do is they bring attention to companies that this is an important goal for many, many companies. And those companies are looking for solutions from their supply chain. And if you're a company that's not paying attention to this and you're not thinking about how you can provide decarbonized products and services to your customer base, then you're at risk of being behind, and that your competitors are surely working on this. And as Ellen mentioned, it's not only, I think a big part of the opportunity that companies have is not only in their own operations. So very similar VMware, a lot of our carbon footprint is in our value chain. It's with our suppliers and with how our customers operate their own data center infrastructure. And so to the extent that we can help them do that more efficiently and also decarbonized fashion, that is going to have a magnified impact that VMware can have for our value chain. And the more that all of the companies can push each other, setting their own goals, setting their purchasing requirements, so that now there's a business case for other companies who maybe haven't started on that journey to say, this is something our customers are demanding, and it's an important aspect of our business operations, how we conduct our business for our customers in order to stay competitive. So I think that all of these, the science-based targets, RE100, the climate pledge, they're so important in bringing that awareness across the global customer base.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think you're hitting on a great point there, which is exactly that, the awareness that by sharing these stories and these challenges as well. I mean, Ellen, what you were talking about in terms of the challenges in some of the places around the world to find renewable energy projects, to lean into those, to highlight these challenges for customers. So I'm really grateful that all of you are sharing these. And I want to shift a little bit and dig into that. I'm curious about the key challenges that you all foresee within your companies and the respective industries as you work to decarbonize your own operations and help others to decarbonize. So, Matthias, what are some of the bigger challenges you face in your industry to effectively decarbonize in line with the climate pledge goals?
Yeah, first I would really like to double up on what Ellen said and also Nicola said. I think is valid for all of us, and that has not been so much in the focus in recent years is the supply chain. Yeah, because also on our end, so for it is also we do a lot with our customers, and I shared a couple of examples before. We of course do it. Gave an early commitment already in 2015 to become also net zero in 2030. Here in my headquarter location for smart infrastructure already 23, which is only 2 years out. So we have done a lot in our own operations, applying our own medicine, so to say, and then also talk to customers and do the same thing. But what we got more in focus, and that is the bigger challenge, as you were asking, is on the supply chain side, where if you compare this, we have only 1.3 million tons on our own operations and 12 million in the supply chain, but our customers in their operations 900. So that is really where the potential is. So getting in all the industries, and they're energy heavy industries which are more difficult to transform, as Jakob knows a lot about it, and then others where it goes faster, but it's about the commitment. So I would really say in supply chain is our today's focus. What we do, and this is also about software companies, and really it's about where you can help us, or we as a large software company also help ourselves in doing a green digital twin. So we can analyze the entire supply chain and see, okay, and tell our customers, hey, if you buy this product, this is the consumption or the emission that has been created in the course of the supply chain. So that is something which is really developing, and we get more and more customers asking us, can we do this? Can we use this as well? How can we develop this together? Because it's one of the most pressing questions, solving the challenge in the supply chain. You called it up and downstream before, and also on our end. So this is where what has been underestimated in the past is now a clear focus, and of course continue doing it on our own end, in our own operations, and it's our task, of course, that's our business, to do it with our customers, and we offer these solutions for them to make zero carbon a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. The supply chains are going to be very critical here. So, Jakob, I want to bring you in here. How do you think we can ramp up the deployment of renewable energy to meet the pledge? And what do you see as some of the key levers that exist to make this transition happen as soon as possible, given the urgency that we've already been talking about today?
Well, I think first of all, this panel reflects a lot of the sort of really accelerated corporate action that we are seeing these years, and that we are also seeing with our customers. I mean, corporates are really taking a leading role in wanting to accelerate and drive this transformation. And I think what Ellen mentioned around really wanting to make their energy supply 100% green already by 2025 is really an ambitious target that is really helpful, and we're actually demanding the same of our suppliers, because we think that 2025 is really, that's when everybody should be running on entirely on green energy. So clearly the demand side needs to to align with these ambitious targets. But as one of the largest renewable energy developers in the world, we're obviously also very much focused on how fast is the deployment happening. And one of the things we can see, and this is the year of COP26, right? I mean, almost all countries in the world committed to the Paris Agreement, committed to the 1.5 or 2 degree scenario. But when we look at the national commitments, they are not really at the level where they need to be in order to stay on that curve. And that's obviously the key topic that's going to be discussed at the COP26. So basically aligning and accelerating sort of the national plans to be in line with Paris is key. But also further down the line, we need to see that all of these targets are actually translated into specific projects in time that have sort of a well-functioning permitting and consenting schemes, and that all of this actually gets deployed, because otherwise we will simply fall short of the action needed to decarbonize the global energy system.
Yeah, that's an incredibly important point. We're going to need all sectors. So, Nicola, I want to go back to something you brought in around customers. Knowing that VMware's work consists of, enabling customers to decarbonize IT infrastructure through your virtualization technologies, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges thinking about customers and decarbonization in your industry?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing is that our customers are setting significant goals, science-based target RE100, and they are slowly starting to push those responsibility for those goals down into the organizations, and that means the organizations that run the digital infrastructure for the companies. So they're starting to look for solutions, and I think one of the challenges is there's a mindset of the way that industry has operated for so long. It's all about keeping the business going, business continuity, making sure the business has resiliency, but also that they can be very agile. And so it's all about the infrastructure, and they're not always thinking about the efficiency of that infrastructure or that it's renewable energy powered. And so we're having to bring attention even to the idea that if you use virtualization, that actually can shrink the amount of infrastructure you need, which is much more energy and carbon efficient. So even bringing that basic awareness to this new audience is a bit of a challenge. There's also the tools and the data sets that are needed. So if we can pivot their mindset to start thinking about efficiency of their operations and the carbon intensity of their operations, they're asking the questions, well, what is the carbon footprint of my digital infrastructure? And how do I get the data to not only figure out that carbon footprint, but then what do I do about it? How can I reduce it? And so there's a huge opportunity around providing that visibility, and then also the management practices, hopefully automated, right? That we can help them automatically go to the most energy efficient and carbon efficient solution. And you think about what some of the companies like Google are doing, where they're even thinking about moving workloads around to follow the sun or follow the renewable energy, or figure out when workloads should be run in a less carbon intensive period. So there's lots and lots of opportunities. I'm very excited about the opportunities. I think we can move very quickly, but we do need to recognize that it's a human problem, right? We're trying to shift mindsets. We're trying to shift behaviors and educate. And we have to accelerate how we're doing that. But I think there's a huge business case behind this. And I think that is going to be very helpful in terms of accelerating the progress that we're making.
Yeah. No, it's really, really important. And I love the examples that you provided there of some of the innovations that we're seeing. And I think we can all learn from some of the ways of people being very creative. And I know Ellen, HP is doing a lot of creative things and has a really unique opportunity to engage with customers in their own decarbonization paths and journeys. So I know you're working to make your products more sustainable. What are some of the challenges that you see as you're aiming to raise the bar in the development of more climate-friendly products?
Well, at HP, we're always working to make our products more energy efficient. For example, since 2010, the energy consumption of our personal systems products dropped by 47% on average. And 93 of our home and office printers that shipped in 2020, they were Energy Star certified. So you can see more than 120 of these products on Amazon as part of the Climate Pledge Friendly Shopping Initiative. But beyond energy efficiency, the real opportunity that we see is to decarbonize our products by increasing the use of recycled materials and driving towards that circular economy. We've set a goal to reach 75% circularity for our products and packaging by 2030. And so what does that mean, 75% circularity? That's defined as 75% of the product weight must be made from either reused, recycled, or renewable materials. And through 2020, we achieved 41% circularity. So getting from 0 to 41% was definitely tough, took a lot of innovation. Our product designers were hard at work trying to figure out how to use these materials in this new way. But getting from 41 to 75 is going to be even harder as you get to those higher percentages. Using more recycled content is increasingly difficult because the challenge is, when you're innovating with recycled content plastics, for example, to achieve that same performance that we and our customers demand, it just gets really tough. We've been using materials like ocean-bound plastic in our products since 2016. This is an example of how we've been able to scale, getting from the 0 to 41% today. First, we started in our ink cartridges. And then our personal systems side of the business saw what our print side was doing and wanted to get into the game. And so then we were able to develop the world's first display monitor that used ocean-bound plastics, the world's first laptop, our Dragonfly, that uses ocean-bound plastic. And now we've used more than 2.8 million pounds of ocean-bound plastic, scaling it in over 50 HP products that use this material. So, once we find an innovation and can really focus on that scale, that's really an opportunity. But as we're on this journey, we're learning along the way. So, for example, a few weeks ago, we just launched our Z workstations, our most powerful desktop computers, and they're now using ocean-bound plastic, but in a new part, the fan. Before that, ocean-bound plastic was used in more static parts, like the back panel of a display monitor. There's no motion in that back panel, or the plastic that sits around the webcam in some of our desktops. But the fans required a different level of innovation because it's a moving part. They need to last longer. They need to be quiet and very durable. So it took us about 3 years to develop that specific part to our performance standards. But on the flip side of using more recycled content in our products, we also need to encourage customers to be part of the solution with us and return their products at the end of service. So building out that reverse logistics, the reverse supply chain, is increasingly important. Our repair, reuse, and recycling programs, they help ensure that the products and the materials are repurposed, which of course keeps them at their highest value state for as long as possible. And it's on us. It's on companies like HP, right, to make it simple and easy for our customers to get those products back to us. So we continue to expand our service offerings as well as engaging our supply chain partners to play really important roles in this process. And I'll give one example, HP Instant Ink. If you have an HP printer at home, hopefully you're subscribing to HP Instant Ink. This is a process that anticipates when your ink is running low, and we send you new cartridges, replenished cartridges, and also recycling envelopes so that you can take your old HP empty cartridge, put it in that envelope for free, mail it back to us directly to our disassembly facility where we take it apart and reuse those materials. So customers using services like Instant Ink, you can save money. You save up to 50% on ink, so it's a win for the customer. But it also decreases the carbon footprint of the ink purchase and the distribution by 73%. And it also reduces energy use by 69%, lowers the water use by 70%. So again, the customer is winning because you're saving money. And then the planet is also winning because we're able to lower our carbon footprint through this. So just an example of all the efforts that we are doing to drive this at a systemic level in a way that enables all of us together to achieve our net zero commitments and deliver on the Paris Agreement before the middle of the century. So we need to do this with a collaborative approach, just like what the Climate Pledge is doing. And we know we can achieve our goals when we do it together.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad that you brought circularity into the conversation as a key component of this, and materials innovation, because I think in addition to what we've been talking today about the renewable energy, aspects of this large scale transformation in cities, large scale infrastructure transformation, energy market transformation, and all the signals that all of our companies are sending. Partnership with our customers and thinking about those kind of multiple wins is incredibly important. So I wanted to thank you all for speaking today, for being part of this Climate Pledge community, for your continued leadership, and really demonstrating that today through sharing some of these examples and innovations. We know that there's a lot more work to be done. Of course, we all know that, but I remain really optimistic about these partnerships and, especially hearing from all of you today. So I want to take the opportunity to invite everyone watching us today to join the Climate Pledge. We're only stronger, as you can see, by working together, and we have a really strong commitment to learning from each other. So if you're interested and want to learn more, you can find a lot of these stories and examples and more information about the signatories at theclimatepledge.com. So I'm Kara Hurst. I am with Amazon. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks for watching and participating, and have a great Climate Week.